All right. So, a lot of people don't seem to like my true crime podcasts. Either I get a 50-50. 50% of you say, holy shit, this is awesome. I really like, your true crime podcast. It's great. Keep it up. And then I get a lot of thumbs downs. And I really don't care about thumbs down. I'm bored. It's 4:16 a.m. I can't sleep. So let's talk about this case. The case of Orsolya Gaal. I'll call her Orsi for the video because it's hard to pronounce. So the suspect ended up being the handyman. And the handyman is the person who killed her. Savagely, by the way. A real skell, a real piece of shit. He actually looks like, and I'm not trying to be an asshole here, excuse my language, he looks like Slash from Guns N' Roses, or if Howard Stern had a baby with Dee Snider. I mean, a real skell, a real filthy looking piece of shit. And so some information has been emerging, and okay, here's one of the pieces of information I found out. Okay, so basically he is a creep, like one of those creepers, if you know what I mean. Like he probably has some kind of issues with women, and so he was a frequenter of his local Starbucks. And the baristas, the girls that worked there, had to call the cops multiple times on him. Apparently, you know how they had the tip jars? He was leaving notes for them, like saying some of the employees were beautiful. He was creeping around. He was stalking them. He was making them feel very uncomfortable, hitting on them while they were working. He was being really sort of gross. They called the police, I think a couple of times, apparently. Every time they called the police and the police showed up, by the time they showed up, he was gone. Now, as a person who worked retail myself, I had issues like that myself, and I can only imagine how terrified they were. It's quite terrifying when you get stalked by some creepy man who won't leave you alone. Here's an example of my story. When I worked in retail, there was a couple of men that used to seem to want to always, like, I'd ring them up and you'd think that would be over. Hi, how are you? You ring them up. You say, have a nice day, as you hand them their receipt and change, and they're gone. Well, for me, on several occasions, I had several men that would just stand next to my register and just try to, like, talk me up. You know what I'm saying? And I'm an older woman. I'm not some young person. And I felt very uncomfortable. And, you know, in retail, you have to be nice to your customers. You can't say, hey, look, creep, get the fuck out of here. You know, I'm not feeling comfortable with you talking to me. You know, our transaction is now over. And so I had to, like, be sort of polite through, you know, gritting my teeth. And I had situations where if the store was closing at 9 p.m., one of these customers would show up at 8 p.m. I'd ring them up, and they'd stand next to me at my register till the minute the lights started going out. And as I'm ringing up other customers, they're still standing next to my register, asking me questions, talking to me, making me feel really, really afraid for myself. As a matter of fact, on one evening, I had such a customer. We even shut the lights out. We put the announcement that the store is now closed. Still standing there next to my register. My boss had to say, sir, you have to leave. We are closed. To the point where apparently this guy even knew what car I was driving. He parked his car parallel to my car, where the employees parked in the back of the store, not where the regular customers parked. I couldn't go to my car. And I said to my boss, I'm terrified to go to my car. And my boss at the time, it was only the two of us closing, was a female. And I said, I'm terrified. And she was too afraid to take me and walk me over to my car. I stayed in the store, called the police. I tried to snap photos through the window of his license. I couldn't get his license. And the guy stayed and stayed and stayed and stayed in that car next to my car. We called the police, explained the situation, and the police did not show up for 50 minutes. By the time the police did show up, he was gone. And I explained to the police what was going on. And what happened was the nice policeman that I talked to would do a once over in the parking lot right around the time the store would close. For like, he did it for like 2 weeks, and then I didn't see the policeman come back. But ever since that happened to me, I was always very afraid to walk out to my car, because by that time all the other stores were closed in the shopping center. It would be dark. And so as a woman, just to think about these girls that worked at the Starbucks, I could totally understand how creeped out they felt and how uncomfortable they felt. And that wasn't the only time something like that happened to me working in retail. So back to this creep. And again, I mean, who does that? Who leaves like notes in the tip jar, lingers around like that? Only somebody who's up to no good. You know what I mean? So he apparently stayed in her house, from what I heard. So how it worked was, he showed up at her house. He wanted to talk about the relationship that they apparently had for 2 years on and off. Of course, she must have broke it off several times. And what had happened was that he showed up at her house around 12:40 or 12:30 a.m. He refused to leave her house. She kept asking him to leave. He would not leave the house. And that's when he went into a rage. He used a knife that was in her kitchen to stab her close to 60 times. The 112 precinct, who was doing the canvassing of trying to find this guy, they knew basically who the man, who he was, who they were looking for. I believe, from what I heard, I don't know if this is true, that they found him not far from where he dumped the body. And they saw him with the bandages on his hands. And he walked up to them and said, "I hear you're looking for me." And with no, questions asked to the police, he said, "Yeah, I'll go in and have a talk with you." And wow, what a weirdo. He did not ask for a lawyer. And again, he had a 2-year romantic relationship on and off with her. Apparently, I think she was trying to break it off with him, and he just would not take no for an answer. He was their handyman for 2 years. He knew the house in and out. They had a hidden key in the barbecue. He knew about that. Sorry about that. And he may have actually used that key to be inside the house when she came home from the bar that night, where she had like a drink before she came home from a concert earlier. Now, he knew that the husband and the older son was not home. Apparently, maybe they were talking. I don't know. I'm speculating at this point. And he knew that he can get away with it. Now, the 13-year-old son was upstairs, and unbeknownst to him, this was going on downstairs. A quite irritating argument between the two of them. He, again, would refuse to leave that house. She probably didn't want to make a scene. And of course, if she's doing something she's not supposed to, if she would have called the cops to have him removed from the home, then her husband would have probably found out what was going on. And that's why she probably tried to, quiet him down so he didn't make a scene. He went to the hospital for the wounds on his hands, apparently. When you're stabbing somebody close to 60 times, the knife becomes so bloody that your hands slip. And most, murderers that stab like that ends up with lacerations and cuts all over their hands. He went to urgent care. The urgent care looked at his wounds and said, "We cannot help you. The cuts are too deep." And I believe they sent him to Bellevue Hospital. Now, he lives in South Richmond Hill, which is a very bad neighborhood. I will show you a picture of where he lives, and it's definitely not a $2 million house like hers. I actually, when I was a little girl, Richmond Hill wasn't a bad neighborhood. Now it is. Now it's like real trash. It's a very, like seedy, a seedy neighborhood. My own mother, before she died, was working in that neighborhood, and I used to be terrified because I was scared for her safety. So every single morning on her way into work in that neighborhood, I would stay on the phone with her until she got out of the car and went into work. And every evening on her way home from her job, leaving that neighborhood, I would stay on the phone with her until she got home from work, because I myself knew that neighborhood was not the best of neighborhoods, if you know what I mean. Okay, he ended up discarding his bloody jacket and fled through Forest Park. Now, Forest Park, if you don't know it, is a large, large park. It's not just like your typical neighborhood park. We're talking hundreds of acres, a golf course, a model airplane area. Where you can fly drones and stuff like that. It has a carousel horse. It has a horseback riding bridle paths. It has golfing, hiking. Bird watchers go there. There's several ponds. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful park. But there are a lot of city characters that also hang out in that park. And as a child growing up in that neighborhood, well, nearby that neighborhood, in walking distance, I would go with my friends to that park. We were kids. Now, back then, when I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, we didn't do play dates. There was no such thing as play dates. We'd get on our bikes and go places. Our parents trusted us. And we would go into that park as kids. And along with the hikers and the joggers and the people walking their dogs, there was a lot of really shady characters in the middle of the trails of those parks. As a matter of fact, there was several occasions where men would pop out of bushes and start exposing themselves to us, where we would run off. We didn't have cell phones. We couldn't call the police. We would have to find pay phones to call our parents to come and get us, until the point where we stopped frequenting that park. And that's when the neighborhood was a good neighborhood. Now the park is nearby her house, but that park is so large, it actually surrounds several Queens neighborhoods that aren't so good. So there are a lot of people in there that do drugs. There's a lot of homeless, and again, a lot of pedophiles and sex offenders and people that are voyeurs that will expose themselves to you. So he fled through that park and, going several miles, which is like 2 to 3 miles, to his house in South Richmond Hill. He got rid of several pieces of evidence that were bloodied along the way, and they found his blood-soaked boots and t-shirt, but it's saying it's not clear where. I think it was found near where her body was dumped. He was hauled in for questioning. As they hauled him in for questioning, he ate a bagel with cream cheese as if nothing, the police detective said. He sat there matter-of-factly and answered all their questions and gobbled up a bagel. Who the hell does that after they murder somebody? This guy is an absolute and utter fucking skell. Excuse my language. A skell. Us New Yorkers call, like, really dirty, seedy characters skells. And he's an example of a skell. As a matter of fact, let's look at the skell. So yeah, this is a skell. In the dictionary, if you type in skell, this is a skell. Okay, so he came from Mexico apparently 21 years ago. He's I believe an illegal alien. Law enforcement could not confirm his immigration status. That means that he has no documentation to show them. They're still investigating that. Now, apparently, he entered the house on the 16th between 12:30 a.m. and 12:40 a.m. He did not leave with the bag until around 4 or 4:30 a.m. That means, now I believe they're estimating that she was killed around 12:40, like right around that time. He spent several hours in that house, and that takes balls. The killer was sitting in her house while the boy was upstairs, the son. Now, what if that child came down the stairs to get a drink of water? God only knows what could have happened to that kid. So he stayed for at least 3 hours in her house. Now, there were several Facebook posts in the past that he emojied some of her photos with hearts, and he was liking her photos. Here's some of them. His Facebook posts. He was talking about how beautiful she was, how she had the look of love in her eyes. And she liked his posts back with emojis as well. I don't know what the hell she saw in him, but then again, they say there's an ass for every seat in this world. And what I think is like absolutely disgusting, and not handsome, somebody else might think is hot. So, or interesting, or sexy, or I don't mean to be gross right now, but maybe she thought this guy was exciting and exotic. I don't know. Now, the craziest part ever was when the homicide squad and the detectives were going through the house, going over the crime scene evidence. They found on the refrigerator, like a lot of people have memo pads, like to-do lists, with a magnet on the back that sticks to the refrigerator. I have one of those too. And there was like a thing written, and the cops noticed this, and you know what it said? It said, hire a new handyman. What an absolute piece of shit. I mean, this Slash wannabe, like this Rocka wannabe dude. I mean, he had the fucking nerve, excuse my language, to write, hire a new handyman. I mean, right off the bat, they figured 100% it was the handyman guy. I mean, I think they already knew because, of course, even if you delete your messages on your phone, there's ways that they can find your messages. Also, you got the cloud. You got, all sorts of ways and possible ways to find what was deleted and what, what people wrote to you back and forth. So I'm sure they knew something was going on. Now, the sick part is as he was doing the perp walk. So he's doing the perp walk. Here he is, by the way, with the absolute most like devil may care attitude. If you look at his face, there's nothing in his eyes. And I've seen a few people like that in my life, that you look at their eyes, and the eyes are the windows to the world. But when you look into their eyes, there's nothing behind them. Apparently, he cursed out the reporters who was asking him, why did you kill her? And here's one of the videos of the perp walk, and here we go. All right, let's put it on full volume. Now listen, you might miss it.
David, why'd you do it?
Over here, David.
David, what happened?
Look here, David.
Que paso, David, why'd you do it?
Look here, David.
What happened, David? Que paso, David?
So watch as he ducks his head into the car. I believe he says, fuck you, motherfuckers. You heard that? What a fucking savage. Excuse my language, and a lot of people don't like the way I talk because, I have a filthy mouth, but that is, what an absolute piece of shit. So apparently he has an issue with women and rejection. Again, let's go back to the Starbucks employees. And that's frightening. I have, young daughters that work in retail. And now I'm actually like afraid for them working retail. I told you what happened to me working in retail as an older woman. You get these type of men that will stalk you, will actually be way too forward, if you know what I mean. But this guy, it appears to me that maybe she wasn't that into him. Maybe it was like a quick fling, and I'm not giving that right. Think about the pain she caused her family, and I'm not victim shaming either. I'm not trying to victim shame. Nobody deserves to be murdered. You know what I mean? And stabbed 60 times. But now her family is going to not only live in grief, intense grief from the loss of a wife and a mother, but to know that she was with such a, absolute piece of garbage. And I hope this son of a bitch, this absolute piece of shit, fries in hell. He has second-degree murder charges against him. And a lot of you are like, why didn't he get the higher degree? And I looked it up. It's first degree is the highest, and that's if you plan the murder. if it's premeditated. Since this was like a crime of passion, it gets to second degree. I believe in New York that holds 15 to 25 years, unfortunately. Hopefully it's 25 to life. I don't know. But I just wanted to talk about this case. It absolutely pisses me off. I mean, I'm fuming. I'm filled with rage that this bastard had the nerve to write, even on the refrigerator, hire a new handyman. All right, so that's it. I'm going to probably get a lot of thumbs down for this video. I really don't care. I'm just doing it because I just feel like it. And I just feel like talking about something because I can't sleep right now. All right, guys, so long. If I find out any more news, I'll do some more videos. There's a lot better YouTube channels out there doing this. I'm sure you'd rather watch them. But just doing this, not for the fun of it, just because this case is very, something that, sort of relives a little bit of things in my own mind about how easy it is to meet up with some creepy man, and some creepy man could, harm you. I've had many, many brushes with creepy men in my life, and it's really, it's quite scary as a woman. Okay, guys, I'll talk to you all soon, and so long.